I'm Jagriti Bhatia from Mark II Consulting. Welcome to this webinar about high performance and talent management hosted by Mark II Consulting. And I would like to introduce the CEO, Mark Oliver. Mark has almost 30 years experience in the field of talent assessment and development and is the author of a book describing his innovative model to understand leadership talent called The 7 Motivations of Life. I would now like to hand over to Mark.
Thank you, Jack, and welcome to everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar or joining us on it. So it's about 3 things your managers don't know are causing high performers to fail. In this webinar, we will explore 3 things your senior managers don't know, which in fact are causing high performers to perform badly in their current roles or new roles. Now, these things are costing your company money. The cost. Well, poor management of your high performers, your talent pool, reduces your ROI by at least 22%, according to research by Watson Wyatt. And lots of other research gives the same order of magnitude or even higher orders of magnitude of financial cost. So it's important. Now, I'm Mark Oliver. As we mentioned, now business is enhancing the performance of individuals and organizations through leading edge coaching and programs that transform leadership skills, self-awareness and capability. And there's a direct link there to talent management. Now, I'd like to encourage you to stay to the end of this webinar. And so at the end, you'll be given details on a free personal motivational report, which covers the 3 things from an individual and an organizational standpoint. So that this report, which is usually valued at $64, but will be available in a free link for you at the end. So let's start straight away. And number 3 is promulgating your organizational values has little effect on sustainable staff commitment to your organization. Definition of values is the regard that something is held to deserve its importance or worth, according to the concise Oxford English Dictionary. And values can be too much or too little. Clearly they're important, but balance is also important. Individuals can have little or too much bias towards any of them. And in a business, one needs to seek employees that have the right balance of values relative to organizational values. Let's take the important value of honesty, for instance. And let's imagine we're back in World War II in Nazi Germany, and you live in a house and your next door neighbor is sheltering a Jewish family in their cellar. And along come the Gestapo, knock on your door and say, are there any Jews around here? I'm sure, I hope that we would answer no, and that would be a blatant lie. Clearly, honesty in that situation would be a very big negative. So what stated values are not are objective standards of behavior, independent of a reason for having them. It's important to understand the purpose behind why you might have values or use values in your organization. And there are a number of possibilities. Corporations may publish their values to get or maintain a certain business market profile or brand, to provide a guideline for acceptable behavior of stakeholders, or improve employee engagement and commitment. And there are others. But if the value's purpose is not understood, then the company tends to waste a lot of resources. And these include money, time, employee commitment, and goodwill. Possibly the most important, and other things as well. Let's actually take a moment to look at the link between values and commitment and assume that the reason this particular company is using values is to increase the commitment of its staff. Now, if we take 2 axes, on one axis, the clarity of organizational values, on the other, the clarity of personal values, and we split them into quadrants, so we can have high and low on each. Now we look at the commitment or average commitment in each quadrant on a rating of 1 to 7. So this is research from Posner and Schmidt, and they found that on average, people with a low clarity of organizational values and a low clarity of personal values, which is around self-awareness, had a commitment of 4.9. That's middle of the road. Now, when you increased the clarity of organizational values, but the person's clarity of their own values, the self-awareness, stayed the same or stayed low, the commitment actually went down to 4.87. Now, statistically, there's probably no difference, but it certainly didn't increase. There was no benefit there. Conversely, When you dealt with people who had a high clarity of their own values, but still didn't have good clarity of the organizational values, the commitment was 6.12, a very significant increase. And this would lead to a direct increase in productivity and positive effect to the bottom line in financial terms. Now, when you dealt with people or moved people so they had high clarity of both, this went up to 6.26. So still an advantage, a definite increase. But the most important thing is increasing your staff or people's own self-awareness and clarity around personal values. That's one indication as why self-awareness is so important. In fact, in terms of commitment, you help your employees become more self-aware first to understand their values before you want to work on the organizational values. So the next question is, how can we start understanding values better? Now, we have a model, the Universal Hierarchy of Motivations, that shows there are 7 key values held in importance, regardless of culture, ethnicity, gender, nationality, history, or environment. And they are security, friendliness, dignity, trust, fairness, honesty, integrity. So let's do a little exercise based on that. If you look at those 7 values, which 2 values did over 60% of Australian employees rate their managers as lacking, according to some research? I'll just give you 30 seconds to write down your answer. Well, the answer is, and it was 63% of Australian employees at least, said their managers were not trustworthy or honest. And clearly there would be negative impacts on engagement and productivity from that. And not all the other 5 values were measured. So how can we use these concepts straight away? First of all, understanding your staff's satisfaction of these 2 critical values is a priority, even ahead of the other 5. And as we progress through this webinar together, I'm going to give to you for free the UHM report, as I mentioned, and this will enable you to understand value preferences and your potential shortcomings as perceived by others, and help others be seen as more constructively in terms of these values. Now, other resources are an article, free article on Back to Basics, which you can get from the website or this link that's being uploaded, and a book, The 7 Motivations of Life. Now, number 2, intelligence is important, but a person's self-awareness is more important than their intelligence in life generally, and specifically for authentic leadership. And the clue has already been given in number 3. So the operational definition of intelligence, that's the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. And the question is, why do smart people fail so often? Well, because smart is usually applied to IQ only. And there exists 3 other distinct intelligences: EQ, SQ, and tactical intelligence. And everyone is naturally high in a couple of these intelligences and naturally lower in a couple. And the good news is all 4 intelligences can be increased, but you have to work in the right way to increase them. That's something that this report will also help you understand. So what intelligence is not is only an intellectual capability. So let's imagine for a moment 2 people have applied for one role at your company and you must hire one of them, and yet you only know one thing about each. In terms of intelligence, one is low intelligence, one is high intelligence. Everything else is the same as far as you know. You know no other differences. The question is, who would you hire? Now, you might say, well, it depends on the type of job and particular circumstances and context, but generally, who would you pick? And most of us would go employ the high intelligence person and not employ the low one. But this is a furphy. Self-awareness is critical, and really we need to deal with a quadrant. And so we have self-awareness, high and low as well. Now, a person with high intelligence, high self-awareness, hopefully, is where our leaders fit in. How would we describe somebody with low self-awareness, low intelligence, high self-awareness? If you just think for a moment. One way you could describe them is high potential. That's because if we're self-aware, we know what our development areas are, we know what our strengths are, and if we've got clarity on our development areas, we can develop them. And as mentioned before, the intelligences are highly developable, and they can therefore tap into these intelligences and develop them or leverage off them as they need to. Now, if we take somebody of low intelligence, low self-awareness, we could probably describe them as low potential. And last but not least, how would we describe somebody who has high intelligence but low self-awareness? Well, I'd use the word or term Enron person. They're the worst of the worst. If you remember Enron, the company that failed dramatically, the CEO Skilling said he hired guys with spikes, the most intelligent people. But the danger is if they lack self-awareness, they can be fraudulent and behave criminally. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, if I put it another way, put the question another way and asked, you've got one person to hire, one is an intelligent criminal, the other is a stupid criminal, who would you hire if you had to hire one? And for good reason, most of us would say the stupid criminal, because the intelligent criminal can do so much more damage. Now, the good news is you can make your staff become better leaders or change a negative leader to a good leader, a low potential person to a high potential person, simply by helping them increase their self-awareness. So how can we become more self-aware? There are a number of ways. One is by going out of our way to see things differently and getting insightful feedback. Doing what you're doing now is learning some more, seeing a different perspective can help with that process. And the reports, good feedback by UHM report or other forms of psychometric tool can also build and help with that process. Let's look at an exercise now, the trolley problem. Question 1 for you. A runaway railway trolley is about to run down 5 workers who are standing on the track. Now there's a fork ahead, and a railway controller can throw a switch which will divert the train to another line on which there is only 1 worker. Should the controller throw the switch? Just let you think for 30 seconds. Just note your answer down. Okay, before we answer that, let's go to question 2. Now, question 2, a railway manager stands on a bridge above the runaway trolley. Next to the manager is a large man who works for the company. If the large man fell on the tracks, he would stop the trolley before it hit and killed the 5 workers. Assuming you know that to be the case, should the manager push the large man onto the tracks? Again, I'll let you spend 30 seconds to note an answer. Now, looking at your answers, if your answers to question 1 and question 2 were different for the 2 parts, might be a yes and a no or a no and a yes, then your answers are intellectually inconsistent. And the question is, why were those your choices? Now, if they were yes and yes or no and no, there are other questions which can be explored which help with self-awareness. But it's common for us to answer yes and no. And the question would be, why would we make a logically inconsistent answer? And this sort of question can help with exploring your own self-awareness. Now, how to use this concept straight away? Well, by demonstrating higher degrees of your lower intelligences and boosting your EQ, IQ and SQ by doing the following. Honestly praising raises your EQ, or at least your manifested EQ, and therefore has an impact in your life positively. Actively using the UHM model raises your IQ, and again helps. And consciously brainstorming raises your SQ. And like anything, these are simple, but they're very powerful processes, and by practice you'll get better and better at using them. So how do you use this concept straight away? Well, the free UHM report that I'm giving you at the end of this webinar identifies which of your intelligences is more preferred and therefore likely to be higher. And other resources, there's an article, free article, Diving in Deep to Get the Right Stuff, which is also available on our website, and a program about personality called the Mark II Personality Training, which you can look at and get more details on the website. So finally, let's go to number one. And this is that only about 15% of your high performers are your high potentials. Now, the definition for performance, the action or process of carrying out or accomplishing an action, task, or function. And for potential is latent qualities or abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. And here we have a cartoon. Wow, Sally has a real dark horse. And let's look at the Peter Principle. Many organizations promote an excellent technical performer into a supervisory or leadership position only to see them fail. This is often referred to as the Peter Principle. It is a two-edged sword. You lose a very good technical person and you get a poor leader. And it's really setting this person up for failure because we miss understanding a deeper reason behind performance versus potential. What performance is not is solely the short-term results. And research shows, as I mentioned at the beginning of this particular bit of information, that only 15% of high performers are your high potentials. Conversely, some of your current average performers are actually your high potentials, surprisingly enough. So the importance of spotting talent. Organizations are struggling to create leaders of tomorrow. This is something that's cropping up time and time again in the literature, in the human resource literature, the leadership literature, and organizational systems and structure literature. Now, research shows that only 33% of companies claim that their leadership growth has improved in the last 3 years, with a troubling 63% of executives believing their leaders lack the required abilities to achieve critical results. That's a study by CEB. And again, there are many other studies indicating the same problem. Now, part of the reason for this problem is because there are fundamentally two different parts to work. On one axis, you can see the technical ability, which is about ability to think, use a head, and deal with the practical needs. On the axis below, you'll see around relationship ability, it's around the personal needs, and this is through our ability to feel better, to use our heart. Now, one is about IQ, the other is about EQ. And we're most effective when we get them in balance. So let's look again at an exercise. This one, performance potential, looks at the different levels in an organization and really what makes performance or success or how we relate it to each level. Let's take the bottom two of the 4 main role levels and we'll apply 2 intelligences, the 2 that I've just mentioned, EQ and IQ. So the 4 levels, we've got technical, first line manager or supervisor, second line manager, an executive manager, and board. Now, there's technical ability and relationship ability, as we've just seen in the last slide. And for a technical person, most of the work is around their technical ability, surprisingly. As an operator, it's largely about IQ. And relationship ability, there is an important element in terms of relating to others and being able to communicate effectively. Now, that's more linked to the emotional intelligence of somebody. If we go to the next level, this changes somewhat with the relationship ability because leadership becomes a very important part. It's a way we actually maximize the productivity of 10 people, not just ourselves. It is much more significant. And then we've got the tactical manager part. So as a tactical manager, there is an IQ element as well, which is definite, but not as significant as a leadership component at that level. And let's take for a moment 2 people. Call them Dale and Kim. And the question, does Dale or Kim have the higher potential? Now, Dale is currently a high performer and he has a high IQ and a low EQ. Whereas Kim is currently an average performer, she has an average IQ. So it's not surprisingly she's performing averagely because it's the IQ part that is by far the most significant of that role, and a low EQ. Now, assume all other things are equal. The question is, who has a higher potential? I'll just let you think for 15 seconds. Well, the answer is Kim has a higher potential for the supervisor level, as her EQ means she's likely to be better at a key part of the work. So it's a bit like this. And so you can see how here an average performer may actually have higher potential than a high performer. There are two other Peter Principles linked to the next two levels of work, the second line manager level and the executive manager or board level. And different Peter Principles occur because of a mismatch of the other fundamental intelligences. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go into that now. And how can we use this concept straight away? Well, you can assess and select on EQ, IQ, SQ, and physical intelligence and capability. You'll be shown at the end of this webinar a report that helps you do this, plus how to get a free article called Finding the Star Performers. Other resources are an accreditation program, which is due in Singapore in February 2016, and it happens annually. So if you're looking at this after February 2016, then just look at the website and you can see when the next one will be. So in summary, knowing the three unknowns, self-awareness and consistently applying these concepts will enable your organization to make better talent management decisions. Our research shows this will directly impact your bottom line and provide many other benefits too. Now, would you be happy if I described a program that we run that expands on these three concepts and focuses on additional material to create more conscious leaders in your organization? It's a public transformational leadership program. Deliverables include, it provides you with a deep and pragmatic understanding of leadership and how it differs from management, expands self-awareness so that you can have a greater other awareness to realize your full leadership potential, linked to EQ, leads to increased team engagement and productivity, improves the ability to handle difficult conversations. As an example of some of the typical feedback we get, Mark Oliver has been an inspiration to my team in helping them gain a greater understanding of themselves and how they impact the teams they lead. One of the outcomes has been a 250% increase in employee engagement over the 3 years Mark has worked with us. Now that was from David Bow, who was CIO of National Foods. And we started just with this transformational leadership program, this 2-day program. And then I worked with them 3 or 4 days a year. And the outcome was a very significant increase in employee engagement. To put that into financial terms, that's, according to the research, equivalent to about an 80% increase on the bottom line. Now, Mark II Consulting normally provides this course only to corporates, but we do run this public course once per year, really due to popular demand. Numbers are limited, and for dates and details, if you go to the website and programs and public workshops, you'll see the current date for the next one due. This year, we've added something that we cover in other corporate courses as well, in our one-on-one coaching programs too. And if you join us for the public program, Mark II Personality Training, you'll also gain an understanding of the 8 different neuroscientifically based personality styles. And if you see the website and again go to the public workshops, you'll be able to find out the details there. Now, understanding these personality styles gives you, as a leader, a distinct advantage to fully leverage your conscious leadership. So the deliverables out of today. We highlighted and saw practical ways to change our methods, noting promulgating your organizational values has little effect on sustainable staff commitment to your organization. Intelligence is important, but a person's self-awareness is more important than their intelligence, especially for authentic leadership. And only about 15% of your high performers are your high potentials, in fact. And some of your staff who are not high performers today are your high potentials. Now, I would like to offer you the opportunity to complete your UHM report for free, provide access to free articles from our website, and please accept my invitation to contact me at any stage if you wish to discuss opportunities. Remember the opportunity not to miss the next annual Public Transformational Leadership Program. You can do that by going to the website. And if you send us an email at inquiries@mark2consulting.com and title the email Webinar UHM Report 041115 and state your name in the email, we will send you a link that enables you to complete your free UHM report. And that's it. If you'd also like the article for Picking Star Performers sent to you, please add +star performers to the email title. And I'll also be giving away 10 copies of my book to the first 10 of you that join us for the annual Public Transformational Leadership Program. Again, more details on the public workshops page of the website. And last but not least, thank you very much for watching.